The warning ignored the crystalline halls of the Galactic Council chambers on Nexus Prime hummed with tension. Representatives from 47 species filled the amphitheater, their various forms of communication creating a symphony of clicks, growls, and electronic pulses that the universal translators worked overtime to process. At the center of it all, a heated debate raged about the newest addition to the galactic community, humans. Ambassador HFY of the Saurian Republic stood at his designated speaking platform, his scaled hands gripping the podium as his amber eyes swept across the assembly. His species had been part of the galactic community for over 3,000 years, and their archives contained warnings that others chose to forget. Esteemed colleagues, HFY began, his voice carrying the weight of ancient wisdom, I implore you to listen to what our ancestors recorded about the humans. They are not like us, they do not think like us, and most importantly, they do not give up like us. A series of dismissive chittering came from the Hive delegation, led by General Vexter. The insectoid commander's mandibles clicked in what passed for laughter among his kind. His 6 eyes gleamed with predatory confidence as he rose from his cluster of subordinates. The Old One speaks of myths and legends. Vexter's voice buzzed through the chamber's speakers. These humans are a young species, barely 2 centuries in space. They have no significant military presence, no advanced technology, and their colonies are scattered and poorly defended. The Hive has conquered species far more advanced than these mammals. HFY's tail lashed behind him, a sign of deep frustration. You speak of their technology and numbers, but you ignore what makes them truly dangerous. In our archives, there are records of a species that pursued their enemies across 3 star systems over a single insult. A species that spent decades hunting down pirates who attacked their merchant vessels. They call it persistence hunting, and they applied it to space warfare. The human representative, Captain Sarah Chen, sat quietly in the diplomatic section. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and her uniform bore no excessive decorations. She listened to the debate with the calm patience that had made her one of Earth's most effective diplomats. When called upon to speak, she rose smoothly. Honored representatives, Sarah began, her voice clear and steady, humanity comes to this council seeking peaceful coexistence. We have no desire for conquest or conflict. Our colonies exist to provide homes for our growing population and to contribute to galactic prosperity through trade and cultural exchange. Vexter's wings buzzed with agitation, pretty words from a species that has been expanding aggressively for 50 years. Your colonies encroach on traditional Hive territories. Your traders undercut our established markets. Your very presence disrupts the natural order. The systems we've settled were uninhabited, Sarah replied calmly. Our surveys showed no prior claims, and we've followed all established protocols for colonial expansion. As for trade, we compete fairly and openly. If our goods are preferred, it's because we offer better value or quality lies. Vexter's voice rose to a shriek. The Hive has ruled the Outer Rim for 5 centuries. These humans think they can simply arrive and claim what is ours by right of conquest. HFY stepped forward again, his voice urgent. General Vexter, I beg you to reconsider. The old records speak of human reactions to unprovoked attacks. They don't respond with fury or rage like most species. They respond with something far more dangerous, cold, calculating determination. They will not simply retaliate. They will hunt you to the very edge of existence. The insectoid general's laugh was like the sound of breaking glass. Let them try. The hive is eternal. We have crushed a dozen species that thought themselves mighty. These soft mammals will be no different. The session ended with no resolution, but everyone present knew that conflict was inevitable. As the representatives dispersed, Sarah Chen approached Kethva in the corridor outside the chamber. "Thank you for your words of warning," she said quietly, "though I hope they prove unnecessary." Kethva's ancient eyes showed deep sadness. "Captain Chen, I fear my words have fallen on deaf ears. The hive has never known true defeat, and they cannot imagine it. Please, when the time comes, remember that not all of us supported what is about to happen." "I'll remember," Sarah promised. "And I hope you'll remember that humans prefer peace to war. But we're very good at both." 3 days later, the hive struck. New Terra, humanity's newest and most prosperous colony, was celebrating its founding day when the attack began. The colony world was home to 2 million humans, mostly families seeking a better life among the stars. The planet's defenses were Monomal, a small orbital station, and a handful of patrol ships designed more for rescue operations than warfare. Vexter's fleet emerged from hyperspace like a swarm of angry insects. 200 ships, ranging from massive carriers to swift attack craft, surrounded the helpless colony. The attack was brutal and swift. The orbital station was destroyed in the first salvo, its crew given no chance to surrender. The patrol ships were hunted down and eliminated one by one. Then the bombardment began. Vexter had chosen to make an example of New Terra. The bombing was not aimed at military targets, but at the civilian population, centers, schools, hospitals. Residential areas, all were targeted with methodical precision. The hive wanted to send a clear message to humanity: submit or face extermination. The massacre lasted for 6 hours. When it ended, New Terra burned. Of the 2 million colonists, less than 50,000 survived, most of them refugees who had managed to escape in the few civilian ships that broke through the blockade. The planet's surface was scarred with radioactive craters, its cities reduced to rubble, its dreams turned to ash. But the hive had made one crucial error. They had left witnesses. The survivors' testimonies reached Earth within days, carried by the desperate few who had escaped the slaughter. The reports were clinical, detailed, and devastating. The hive had not simply attacked a military target or even a strategic asset. They had deliberately murdered civilians, including children, as a message of intimidation. The human response was swift, but not what the galaxy expected. There was no immediate declaration of war, no angry speeches calling for vengeance. Instead, President Maria Santos appeared on all human communication networks with a simple, terrifying message: "The hive has chosen to attack our people without provocation. They have murdered civilians, including children, to send a message. We have received that message, and we are sending one in return. The hunt begins now." Within hours, every human military vessel in the galaxy received new orders. Trade ships were recalled to safe harbors. Diplomatic missions were suspended. The entire human military apparatus, which had been scattered across dozens of systems in peaceful deployments, began to move with a single purpose. Admiral Marcus Stone, commander of the Third Fleet, stood on the bridge of the battleship Retribution as it emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system. Around him, the largest human fleet ever assembled dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. 300 ships, from massive dreadnoughts to swift destroyers, all bearing the blue and white colors of the Terran Federation. "Sir," reported his tactical officer, We're receiving surrender requests from 12 different species in this system. They're all asking for safe passage out of the war zone. Stone nodded grimly. Granted, this isn't about conquest. It's about justice. Have all non-hive vessels cleared within 12 hours. After that, anything that moves and isn't broadcasting human IFF codes gets destroyed. The message was clear to every species in the galaxy. The humans weren't interested in territorial gains or political advantage. They had come for the hive, and they would let nothing stand in their way. Asterisk. Vexter received the reports of the human fleet movements with growing unease. His advisors assured him that the humans were simply making a show of force, that they would negotiate once they realized the futility of fighting the hive across multiple systems. But something in the cold precision of the human response troubled him. The first battle came at the mining station of Kepler-7. The hive had established a forward base there, confident that its natural asteroid defenses would slow any human advance. They were wrong. The human fleet didn't attempt to storm the station or engage in the kind of brutal frontal assault that most species favored. Instead, they deployed something that made the hive commander's blood run cold. Patience. The humans surrounded the asteroid field and waited. They established a perfect blockade, cutting off all supplies and communications. Then they began the systematic destruction of every piece of hive equipment in the system, one target at a time. Mining ships, communication relays, supply depots were eliminated with surgical precision. The siege lasted 3 weeks. When the hive garrison finally attempted to break out, they found the humans ready. The battle was over in 40 minutes, with not a single hive ship escaping. But the most chilling discovery came when human boarding parties swept through the captured station. They found detailed records of the attack on New Terra, including video recordings of the bombardment and casualty counts. The humans studied these records with the same methodical attention they brought to everything else. They're not just angry, observed Commander Alina Vasquez, leader of the human special forces team that had captured the station. They're learning. They're studying how the hive operates, how they think, how they fight. This isn't just about winning battles. They're preparing for a long campaign. News of the fall of Kepler-7 spread through the galaxy like wildfire. For the first time in 5 centuries, the hive had been decisively defeated. Other species began to take notice, and more importantly, they began to reassess their own relationships with humanity. Kethfer watched the reports from his embassy on Nexus Prime with a mixture of sadness and vindication. His aide, a young Saurian named Velton, stood beside him as they observed the tactical displays. The old records were true, Velton said quietly. The humans really don't give up. No, Kethfer replied, his voice heavy with the weight of prophecy. Fulfilled, they don't. And now the hive will learn what our ancestors discovered long ago. There is no hiding from a species that views the entire galaxy as their hunting ground. Asterisk, the hunt begins. The war that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. Traditional conflicts between species typically involved grand battles, territorial exchanges, and eventually negotiated settlements. The human campaign against the hive was something entirely different. It was methodical, relentless, and utterly without mercy. Admiral Marcus Stone stood in the command center of the Terran Federation's newest mobile command ship, the Inexorable. The vessel had been constructed specifically for this campaign, designed not for single battles, but for sustained operations across multiple star systems. Its hull was scarred from a dozen engagements, but its purpose remained unchanged. "Sir," reported his intelligence officer, Commander Lisa Park, "we've confirmed that Vextha-S main fleet has retreated to the Vorthen Nebula. They're using the sensor interference to mask their positions." Stone studied the holographic display showing the nebula's swirling gases. Any other species would see that as an impregnable fortress. Dense gas clouds, sensor interference, natural barriers. He paused, a grim smile crossing his weathered face. "But they're not thinking like humans. We don't need to see them to hunt them." The human approach to the nebula warfare was characteristic of their entire campaign. Instead of rushing in blindly, they established a perimeter around the entire nebula sphere of space 3 light-years in diameter. No ship entered or left without human knowledge. Then they began the slow, systematic process of clearing. The nebula section by section. Commander Alina Vasquez led the specialized hunter-killer teams that operated in the nebula's depths. Her ship, the Bloodhound, was designed for stealth and precision strikes. Unlike the massive fleet engagements that had defined the early phase of the war, the Nebula campaign was fought by small units operating independently but coordinated through quantum communication networks. Remember, Alina briefed her team as they prepared for another sweep. "We're not just hunting ships. We're hunting an entire culture. Every supply depot we destroy, every communication relay we eliminate, every safe harbor we deny them brings us closer to ending this. The hive survives by thinking collectively. We're going to force them to think like individuals, and individuals make mistakes." The psychological impact of the human campaign was devastating to the hive. They had never faced an enemy that refused to accept defeat or negotiate. Human fleets appeared wherever hive forces tried to establish new bases. Their supply lines were constantly under attack. Most terrifying of all, the humans seemed to have unlimited patience. Vextha found himself in the position he had never imagined: hunted prey. His once mighty fleet had been reduced to a handful of ships, and his territory had shrunk to a few hidden bases in the galaxy's most remote regions. But the humans kept coming. "General," one of his remaining advisors buzzed nervously, "perhaps it's time to seek terms. The humans might be willing to negotiate if we offer reparations for the colony." Vextha-S mandibles clicked in bitter laughter. "You still don't understand, do you? This isn't about reparations or territory. Look at their behavior. They're not fighting to win concessions. They're fighting to eliminate us entirely." The advisor's wings trembled. "But that's genocide. The Galactic Council would never allow it." "The Galactic Council," Vextha-S voice carried a note of hysteria. "The Council has been suspiciously quiet about this war. Do you know why? Because they're terrified. They've realized what I refused to see. These humans don't fight wars the way civilized species do. They fight them the way apex predators hunt." The advisor's fears were well-founded. Across the galaxy, species that had initially remained neutral were quietly making overtures to human diplomats. The message was always the same. They had no quarrel with humanity and would not interfere in the conflict with the hive. Kethfa found himself in the unusual position of being the galaxy's most sought-after advisor on human behavior. His embassy on Nexus Prime was constantly visited by representatives seeking to understand humanity's intentions. Ambassador asked the delegate from the Crystalline Collective, "Our analysts predict that the humans will declare victory once they've eliminated the hive's military capacity. Surely they don't intend to pursue this campaign indefinitely." Kethva-S ancient eyes showed the weight of his knowledge. "Your analysts are thinking like civilized beings. The humans are not driven by politics or territorial ambition. They are driven by something far more primitive and powerful: pack loyalty. The hive attacked their pack, killed their young. In human terms, this is a blood debt that can only be paid in full. The delegates' crystalline form shifted nervously, but the cost, they've been fighting for 2 years now. Their economy must be straining under the burden. You're still not understanding, Kethva replied patiently. This isn't a burden to them. It's a mission. They've reorganized their entire civilization around a single purpose: the elimination of the hive. Their children are being raised with stories of new terror. Their artists create works celebrating the hunt. Their scientists develop new technologies, specifically for tracking and destroying hive forces. They've turned genocide into a cultural imperative. The truth of Kethva's words became apparent as the war entered its 3rd year. The human campaign had evolved beyond simple military operations. They had established a galaxy-wide intelligence network dedicated to tracking hive movements. They had created specialized ships designed for long-range pursuit missions. Most chilling of all, they had developed new technologies specifically for destroying hive biology. The breakthrough came when human scientists successfully decoded the hive's biological communication systems. The insectoid species relied on pheromone-based chemical signals to coordinate their swarms. Human researchers had not only learned to interpret these signals, but to disrupt them. Elena Vasquez tested the new weapon during a raid on a hive supply depot in the Outer Rim. The device, codenamed Confusion, broadcast chemical signals that overrode the hive's natural communication methods. The result was devastating. It's working, Elena reported as her team observed the hive forces through their sensors. They're attacking each other. The drones can't distinguish between friend and foe. The entire hierarchy is collapsing. The deployment of Confusion weapons marked the beginning of the end for the hive. Their greatest strength, their collective intelligence, had been turned against them. Hive forces began to fragment, with individual units acting independently and often counterproductively. Vexter, now reduced to commanding a single ship and a handful of loyal subordinates, watched his civilization crumble with the despair of a leader who had finally understood his enemy too late. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving a transmission from the human fleet. They're offering terms." Vexter's compound eyes focused on the display. Admiral Stone's face appeared on the screen, his expression professionally neutral. "General Vexter," Stone began, "you are the last significant hive commander still in operation. Your forces are scattered, your communication networks are compromised, and your hiding places are known to us. I'm offering you one opportunity to surrender unconditionally." Vexter's mandibles clicked with what might have been respect. "Admiral, I must ask, what will happen to my people?" Stone's response was delivered with the cold precision that had characterized the entire campaign. "The hive as a military organization will cease to exist. Your species will be relocated to designated worlds under human supervision. Your technology will be confiscated. Your young will be raised with human educational oversight to ensure they understand the consequences of unprovoked aggression. And if I refuse, then we will continue the hunt until every hive ship has been destroyed and every hive world has been occupied. The choice is yours, but the outcome is inevitable." Vexter looked around at his remaining subordinates, seeing the same realization in their eyes that he felt in his heart. The humans had not simply won a war. They had demonstrated something that would reshape galactic politics forever. I surrender, Vexter said quietly. But I must know, was this always your intention, to destroy us completely? Stone's expression softened slightly, showing perhaps the first hint of emotion he had displayed throughout the war. No, General. Our intention was to live peacefully among the stars. You chose to attack our children. You chose to make this personal. We simply responded in kind. The formal surrender ceremony took place on Nexus Prime, with representatives from every major species in attendance. The sight of Vexter submitting to human authority sent a clear message throughout the galaxy. Humanity was not to be underestimated. But the most significant moment came when Kethva approached Admiral Stone after the ceremony. Admiral, the old Saurian said quietly, I hope you understand what you've accomplished here. You've not only defeated the Hive, you've established humanity as the galaxy's apex predator. Other species will remember this campaign for millennia. Stone nodded thoughtfully. We never wanted to be predators, Ambassador. We wanted to be neighbors. But if the galaxy insists on seeing us as hunters, ... He paused, looking out at the assembled representatives, many of whom were watching the human delegation with newfound respect and carefully concealed fear. Then we'll be the best hunters the galaxy has ever seen. The aftermath of the war was swift and decisive. The Hive territories were reorganized under human administration, with surviving Hive populations relocated to worlds where they could rebuild their civilization under careful supervision. The galaxy's political balance shifted dramatically, with humanity emerging as the dominant military power. But perhaps the most lasting impact was psychological. The human campaign against the Hive had demonstrated something that fundamentally changed how other species viewed both conflict and humanity itself. They had proven that humans didn't simply fight wars. They waged campaigns of absolute determination that continued until their objectives were completely achieved. Years later, when new species were introduced to the Galactic Council, they would receive a standard briefing about the major powers and their characteristics. The section on humanity always ended with the same warning that had proven prophetic. If you must fight the humans, win quickly, because if you don't, they will hunt you to the very edge of existence, and they will never, ever stop. The galaxy had learned the hard way that humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or their numbers, but their absolute refusal to accept defeat. In the vast cosmos filled with civilizations that had evolved beyond their primitive hunting instincts, humans remained what they had always been, the most patient, persistent, and ultimately successful predators ever to reach for the stars. And in the quiet moments between the stars, when ships passed through the darkness between worlds, crews would sometimes whisper the warning that had become galactic legend: never wound a human unless you can kill them all. Because if even one survives, they will find you. And when they do, nowhere in the galaxy will be safe.